We once again are diving into some small town stories. We're now on episode 5, and it's been a very creepy ride thus far. The subscribers share 5 more incredibly creepy stories from their small towns. I myself, being a small town resident, can resonate with these stories, and they probably creep me out almost more than anything. If you have a story that you'd like to share and hear on a future video, be sure to send it to the email or the website that you can find in the description down below. I would love to share your story. Let's get into these tales of terror. What you're about to hear is 100% true, and it still haunts me to this day. For background, I live in southern Ohio, about 30 miles east of Cincinnati. I'm 21 now, but this happened to me when I was 19, right after I graduated from high school. My aunt and uncle own a big farm with lots of woods in northeastern Kentucky, and I'm extremely close with them. So I have free roam of the place, and I even house sit for them if they ever go on vacation. Anyways, I had just graduated high school, and my girlfriend had just broken up with me. I was trying to find a way to distract myself from it when I got a phone call from my uncle. He told me he and my aunt were going on a trip, and he asked me if I could house sit and feed his animals, like always. Obviously, I agree. Quicker than normal, because I saw it as an opportunity to get away from everything and clear my mind. So that night, I loaded up in my old Cadillac Seville and headed that way. I had brought my Xbox, as well as an FN FAL I got for graduation from my dad, as I was planning on doing some light target shooting. By the time I got to their house, it was already dark out. I had made a stop on the way in so I could stock up on beer, energy drinks, and food. I pulled into the driveway and got to the open gate. I heard footsteps in the cow pasture next to me, but I didn't think anything of it. I closed the gate and drove down the long driveway slowly, so I would have less trouble stopping if something jumped out in front of me. I got to the end of the driveway and pulled my car into the garage and started unloading my stuff. Once I got settled in, I hooked on my Xbox in the living room and started to play some Dark Souls. I cracked open a beer and started to relax. I sat for about an hour and started to get tired, and I eventually passed out in the recliner. I got up in the morning and got ready to feed the cows. I walked into the barn and grabbed a bag of feed and sat it in the bed of my uncle's John Deere Gator and drove out to the pasture. It's about 100 acres with rolling hills and small patches of forest, but it's bordered on 2 sides of thick woods. As soon as I got there, I saw a buzzard circling overhead. I knew it wasn't a good sign, and I figured a cow had probably died. I finished filling the trough and drove in that direction. Sure enough, when I got there, I see a heifer dead on the ground on its back facing towards me. I go to see if I can figure out how it died, and saw that it had been mutilated. 2 of its legs had been ripped clean off and thrown to the side, and its underside was ripped open and guts spilled everywhere. I was a skeptical person at the time and never thought about the supernatural, so I assumed it was maybe a pissed off pack of coyotes, even though it seemed like nothing a coyote could kill. I shook it off and texted my uncle to tell him about it. I left the lying corpse there for the meantime, since I wasn't keen on moving it by myself. The rest of the day went off with me popping off rounds with my FN FAL and drinking. I went back inside and cooked myself some supper and passed out half drunk on the couch at about 9. I was woke up at about 3 a.m. to knocking on the door. At first, I kind of ignored it, thinking I was dreaming, but the knocking persisted, so I sat up and listened. From outside the door, I heard my ex-girlfriend's voice. "Jake, I'm sorry. Please let me in. It's cold and I'm scared and lonely." After hearing this, I started to freak out. Even when I dated her, she never knew where my aunt and uncle lived, and on top of that, she didn't know I was out there. My car was in the garage, so it was believable that nobody was home. At this point, I started thinking I was dreaming again, until I realized that I had to use the bathroom. That's when I realized I wasn't dreaming at all. So, at that point, I had thought that either my batshit crazy ex-girlfriend had tracked me down somehow, or some psycho was impersonating her. Either way, I wasn't too happy about the idea, so I quietly stood up and made my way towards my FAL. I grabbed my rifle, slipped my boots on, and creeped towards the door. Once I was there, I said in a loud, clear, and firm voice, "Who's out there? Identify yourself." No answer. Then I said, "You're trespassing on private property, and you're not welcome here. I'm armed. This is your only warning." The only response I got was the laughter on the other side of the door. But it didn't sound like my ex-girlfriend anymore. It had become deep, guttural, and inhuman. At that exact moment, I started to smell the worst thing I've ever smelled in my entire life. It smelled like the dead heifer from earlier, but add burning copper to the mix. I stood there, clutching my rifle, honestly too scared to move. The laughing stopped, and in a distorted version of my ex-girlfriend's voice, I heard, "Follow me. Follow me. Follow me." I was seriously shitting bricks at this point. But I was also getting pissed. So I made the biggest mistake of my life. I turned on the porch light and opened the door. I stepped out with my FNFAL in hand. I stepped out with my rifle in hand, ready to blast whoever it was straight to hell. But nobody was there. I thought, "Bullcrap," to myself and yelled out, "Get out of here before I blow your freaking head off." Then, in my voice right outside the light, I heard, "Blow your freaking head off. Head freaking off." And I heard creepy footsteps running away into the darkness, and I could also hear the cows going crazy. I said F this and decided to get out of Dodge. I grabbed my stuff and ran like a madman to the garage. I'm not a fast runner, but for those 20 seconds, I was Usain Bolt. This was 3 years ago now, and I haven't been back at night since. Growing up in a small rural Vermont town meant that my household didn't have a lot of money, but we still shared everything we had with our extended family. That included letting my aunt, uncle, and cousin move in with us when they got evicted from their house. Everything was just fine, until the crying started. For 2 years, from age 12 to 14, I had to share a room with my little cousin Katie. It wasn't all bad, since she was close enough to my age that she wasn't a pest, but I hated the blackout curtains we had to hang so that any outside light wouldn't keep her up at night. I loved seeing the moonlight filter through the screen in the summer, and I missed that once Katie moved in. It was the second year that they had been living with us when the crying began. At first, I thought it was Katie sobbing quietly when she thought I was asleep, which made sense to me because she had gotten dumped a few days before. I figured she just didn't want to talk because she was ashamed of being the one that got dumped, or she was still just too heartbroken. Over the next few weeks, however, I began realizing that it was coming from different places within our room at night. I couldn't understand why Katie was continuing to cry so much, and any time I asked her about it, she just looked scared and shook her head. I thought something else had happened between her and her ex-boyfriend, but she just wouldn't talk to me. I told my mom and aunt about it one night while Katie was out at her friend Bree's house, but they just shrugged it off and said that we were going through a rough time. My slightly drunk aunt joked that Katie was probably crying at night because my fashion sense was so bad, and that maybe we should try a nightlight if we were going to be such babies. I ignored her and decided that I was done with the whole thing. Things came to a head about a month after I talked to my mom and aunt about it. I was trying to sleep one night, my CD player earbuds lodged firmly in my ears, when I got a gentle tug on my pajama sleeve. I removed my earbuds, turning my face to Katie, even though I couldn't actually see her in the darkness. "What's up?" Instead of the answer, all I got was a sniffle. And before I knew it was happening, Katie had crawled into bed and curled up next to me. This was so out of character for her that I didn't even question it. I just gently stroked her hair. She quieted down for a bit, and I covered her with my spare blanket because she was so cold. I must have fallen asleep at some point, because I woke up to Katie moving around next to me. She leaned over, her soft whisper barely reaching my ears. "Run, the one who got me is coming for you." I had no idea what she meant. I felt her get off the bed, and everything was still and silent again. I strained my eyes to make out what was happening in the pitch-like darkness. But, with the blackout curtains, I couldn't tell where she had gone. "Katie, who's coming? You're creeping me out." She never responded. A primordial growl sliced through the quiet, and a white-hot pain blurred my senses. I screamed as wet, warm liquid ran down my face, and a single hand snaked its way around my throat. I tried to kick out at Katie, but my feet didn't seem to be able to connect with anything. The air was rapidly being squeezed from my lungs, and no matter how hard I tried, it was impossible for me to tear free from the vice-like hand. I was about to pass out when my door was flung open and my father stood there. The hand had released my throat, and after a moment of catching my breath, I realized it was just my father and I in the room. He shouted to my mom to call an ambulance. Then he tried asking me what happened. I frantically begged him to search the room, but there was no one else there. There wasn't even a closet to hide in. The window was locked from the inside. I ended up passing out from losing so much blood, and I also lost my left eye that night. The doctors tried to blame it on a mixture of sleep paralysis, nightmares, and accidental self-harm, but at 120 pounds and no muscle, even my parents didn't believe that explanation. We moved out of that house immediately, since none of us felt comfortable there anymore. On the night I lost my eye, Katie came to see me in the intensive care unit. As soon as her mom picked her up from her boyfriend's house, I almost was asleep in my bed, and I remember her leaning over and whispering to me, her voice heavy with sorrow, "I'm sorry, cuz. I wish I would have been there to help you." Even in my drug-induced, mostly asleep state, it struck me that her whisper didn't sound at all like the one that had tried to warn me about the attack. I have never had a strange experience again, and when we moved, I even got my own room. Since then, I never fail to make sure there's some sort of light in the room, and on those rare nights when I hear crying, I always make sure to leave the house for a while. I never did figure out who warned me, or why they did that, but I'm forever grateful to them. If they hadn't woken me, when they did, I believe I could have been caught off guard to fight back at all, and I would have lost more than just my eye. I'm so thankful to still be breathing, and I make sure to always whisper goodnight to my unseen savior. This is a private story of mine that honestly to me is scarier than any paranormal experience I had over the years. I'm a true believer that no one is truly born evil, but after encountering this girl and remembering what she did, I'm questioning it. A fair warning for anyone listening who's triggered by mentions of sexual assault or abuse. I advise to maybe skip this story if it upsets you. I won't go into detail about the situation entirely due to YouTube restrictions, but to this day, it scares me, especially since the person got away with it and I still see them occasionally. At the time this happened, I was in 2nd grade, and at the time, I was a lonely little girl. I only had one friend, and even they were drifting away from me after some kid drama. You know the type of drama that is. I admit that I was a naive kid, and even after me already being picked on by classmates before, I still thought the world was puppies and rainbows. Hell, I even believed Pokemon were secretly real at the time. So when I finally caught the attention of someone who actually wanted to be my friend, I was ecstatic. It was around September, I think, that this person started talking to me. Her name was Morgan. She was a school athlete that was way taller and stronger than I was. I was waiting in the lunch line, and Morgan walked up and said warm hellos and asked me my name. I simply stated my name, and the kids started talking about things that I liked, like Danny Phantom, SpongeBob, Pokemon, and other shows. Going on about how she got into them because of me and she'd love to talk to me more about it. Cliché, I know, but keep in mind, I was a very naive child who was very lonely, so hearing this made my heart jump with joy. We sat at lunch and began talking about the stated things, probably correcting her a couple of times about wrong information, but other than that, I was a happy kid. 2 weeks went by, and during lunch, Morgan asked me if I would like to join a club. Again, I was really excited and asked about it. Morgan simply said the Tutti Frutti Club. It'll be just me and you. However, you have to do one thing for me. She did this hand motion that I know now is kind of similar to the Vulcan greeting, but she moved her fingers individually. Picture the Newton balls. It was similar to that motion. I can't really describe it accurately. I wasn't very coordinated, so I failed the first time, and then Morgan pinched my arm. No, like this. She did the hand motion again, and once again I failed. She pinched me. She did this all until I did it right at the end of lunch. When I finally did it correctly, she smiled and hugged me. Great, now we can start the club. We meet every Friday during recess. You know, the back of that really big field. It's worth mentioning that we had a huge grassy playfield that was usually used for only field days, but at recess, kids could play on it. However, it was big enough and over a hill that if you went all the way to the back, you wouldn't be seen. I was aware of this, but I thought this club was supposed to be secret, so it made sense to me. I nodded, and she said that that's where we will meet. No matter what, I should always meet there. I regret to this day that I joined that freaking club. That Friday, I met up with her, seeing her face at the back of the field lot. I ran to greet her and she smiled. We talked for a bit. Then she seemed mad. You were supposed to bring a stuffed animal. I was confused and told her she didn't tell me to bring one. When we last spoke, and she growled and proceeded to say that she did, and that I'm a bad friend. I was hurt and told her I might have forgotten and tried to have this. She continued yelling at me, saying that the reason I had no friends was because I don't listen and I never pay attention. After she seemingly calmed down, she hugged me and said that she's sorry and that I just pushed her over the line to say those things. After a moment of hugging, she pretended to be having an epiphany and went, "You need to learn to listen the hard way. I know just the thing. Next Friday, I know the thing that can help you." She said that I was just clueless and struggled with listening, and said next time I should bring an extra shirt. This, honestly, was the beginning of the torture she put me through. I'd go into detail, but I don't want to make it more upsetting than this already is. That following Friday, she put the wet shirt against my nose and mouth and forced me to stare at the sun while pinning me down. This wasn't the worst thing, however. She'd asked me to bring a belt, and she'd smack my stomach and back hard with it until I cried. She'd choke me. And the worst thing is, she would ask me to find a stick, and she did something unspeakable that I don't want to mention. She called me retarded whenever I forgot or purposely didn't bring something that I should have brought. And after she was done teaching me, she'd hug me, cry, and then say it was hard for her to see her best friend hurt. This kid was a fucking psychopath. And one time, I purposely hid in the bathroom and somehow she knew where I lived. She threatened to kill my dog and beat up my little sister so badly, and I quote, that she won't have any more teeth and that'll be your fault. You may be asking why I didn't go for help or tell a teacher. The truth is, she scared me so much that I was afraid to do those things because I didn't want her to hurt my sister or dog. It didn't help that we both went on the same bus as well. This continued until April, near the end of the year when I broke down crying in a classroom and was ushered to a counselor. Even then, I didn't tell the woman the whole truth. You have to keep in mind, I was terrified of this girl. And that one time she showed me exactly what my house looked like. Even after only telling the counselor she called me horrible names and physically hurt me, she still only got off with a warning, which made it worse until the end of the year. The year after that, she transferred schools and I didn't hear of her until 8th grade. When I saw her and was told I was going to be in a group with her, I broke down crying, asking the teacher to take me out of the group. I sometimes wake up from a nightmare that she came into my house as an adult and killed my dog and my sister, smiling from the yard with her tutti frutti hand signal. People aren't born evil, but this girl is the exception. I don't wish death on her or others, but I hope this bitch dies a slow, painful death for what she did to a naive child, ruining their trust in any relationship for the rest of their life. I'm from a small town in Utah. I'm always camping, swimming in lakes, and I'm very familiar with the mountains. One day in 2015, me and my family decided to go up to the mountains for the 4th of July. We didn't have a big family. It was just me, my mom, and my 2 siblings. My sister was 3 and my older brother was 17. I was 15 at the time. Me and my brother both shared a tent while my mom and little sister had a little trailer that only fit one. I never liked this campsite. It's always been darker in a way. Like, the air wasn't so free. It was all musk or, in a way, tense. Well, we were really deep in the forest area. This campsite was shut down in 2013, so we took the chance to save money and go to an abandoned campsite for the hell of it. We once went there back before it shut down. There were no bathrooms, no water, and no one was around. It was nice and quiet. Me and my brother decided to check out the sights. When we were about 10 minutes away from the camp, we came across an old cabin. It was a very old and abandoned cabin. Being myself, I wanted to go inside. It took my brother a good 5-minute argue to let me go. When he finally agreed, we headed inside. It was all torn down. It wasn't very small. It was like a regular or medium-sized house. It was all ruined though. I noticed one drawing on the wall that somehow stood out from all the others. It was like a bull and a human, long arms and long legs. It had a saying like, "They are watching, they see you now, once theirs, now yours to suffer." Those words gave me chills. I watched so many scary movies that I just ignored it. It's a very scary looking house. There is always going to be that one creepy artist willing to give you a good scare from it. After taking a closer look at the artwork, we decided to go upstairs. The cabin was mostly empty. When we got upstairs, it was like a loft, a pair of stairs that led to one huge room, like the whole room was upstairs. It was completely empty, except there was just one little box in the middle of the room which was empty. This is when it gets kind of fuzzy in my notebook. It had 2 horses in it. I was very curious, so I opened it, and to my surprise, there was a couple photos inside. I only remember 3 of the pictures. I know there were more though. One had a picture of a little family. It was black and white. A little girl, she looked like she was between 4 to 6 years old, had a big smile. There was a lady holding 2 toddlers. They didn't look like infants. They were old enough to sit up when she was holding them on her hips. They all had huge smiles. Then there was a man. He had a compelling look. He wasn't smiling like the others. He had no hair. He was standing in front of them in a way. Like, I couldn't see the others' outfits because of his shadow. I remember he had an axe in one hand, and he was holding the little girl's hand. In the background, there was a forest. Like the same one I'm in now. Same cabin. It had flowers, a little stone path, and there wasn't any writing on it, of course. And the roof wasn't broken. The other picture was more interesting and way more chilling. It was a picture of the land that the camp was in now. So, the abandoned camp. I could see the little landmark that told you where you are. In this picture, The man had the little girl on his back. She had the same smile, and the guy had the same face as the other picture. There were little rocks and houses everywhere, like a mini town. Behind the man, you could see a little pathway of rocks with a red stain on it. I personally thought it was blood. You could see dead animals such as deer, rats, and everything else, but I couldn't really tell. I really don't remember much of the third. This time, it was two toddlers. They seemed to be sitting in a pool of water outside. The water went to their neck. I remember this one being really creepy. I just can't remember the creepy part. It's odd. I remember the water being a dark red color, and that's about it. I wanted to give these to a local museum, so I stuck them in my dress pocket. Let's just say that was a huge mistake. By the time we got back to the camp, it was dark. I remember eating a hot dog and s'mores, telling scary stories, then heading to the tents to catch some Z's. I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. My tent, let's say, if I was running, I would be at the mountainside in just 5 minutes. I was walking to find a place to go to the bathroom, and when I was about to squat down, I saw something bright. It was like a light behind a tree. When I took a look, I started hearing the sound of chains. I was literally about to pee myself. It really didn't help that I was literally squatting down to go to the bathroom. It looked like a person, but I couldn't see anything or any features. It was the shape I could see. I think it noticed me. I was shaking, dead quiet, my hand still on the rim of my pajama pants. I was shocked. I couldn't move. It started to slowly move backwards. It was making light noises, and I could hear it slowly going away. I watched it as it got faster and started running up the mountain backward, like up a hill in almost a 90-freaking-degree angle. It was so steep you couldn't even climb it with ropes. I was about to crap myself. When it got to the very top, it seemingly just disappeared. I woke up everyone after this, and we packed up and left. I threw the pictures out the window, not even caring anymore. This happened 2 years ago in a small town in Eastern Europe. I was 18 at the time, freshly graduated from high school. Well, our town is surrounded by woods, so if you follow a random road, there are high chances that you will end up on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, which isn't even on Google Maps. Me and my friends were very adventurous, because we were dumb teens. We had a license, so, being that our town had very few boring places to hang out, we pretty much explored all of the country dirt roads. One night in August, we decided to go on a night drive to a place we have been before, and we liked the fact that we have never seen a car driving there, so we could smoke, drink, and blast music without disturbing anyone. We named the place the Botanical Garden, simply because it was like 20 miles away, on a road surrounded by undisturbed forest on both sides. We were 2 cars full with people. I was driving mine, and Elena the other. We arrived at the place at like 11 p.m., and we started doing our usual dumb things. As a matter of fact, I don't smoke, and I couldn't drink since I was the driver, so I don't think I imagined what happened next. We were just laughing like idiots when Elena turned the music volume down a little and told us to be quiet. We asked why, but she didn't respond. She was focused on hearing something. "Guys, you didn't hear that?" "Hear what?" we asked her. She explained to us that she went a little close to the woods and heard something like a crying woman. She was genuinely scared. I could see that on her face. While I was telling her that it was most likely a fox or an animal and she mistook the sound, a few of my high and drunk friends started bluffing, screaming at whatever it was to go away, that we could beat the shit out of it. Suddenly, we began hearing rhythmic screams, like 10 seconds away from each other. But what really scared me was that every scream sounded closer to us. Well, To be honest, I really thought that there was someone that needed help, but those screams were something scarier than in any horror movie. I can still hear it sometimes in my nightmares. I know we were dumb, but we didn't move a muscle. I don't know why. We were just staring at each other, not saying anything with our scared faces. I think it was the fact that we were like 10 people, so we felt a little strong. We also had pepper spray just in case we run into somebody we don't want to. The girls were the first who made the dash for the cars, followed by everyone else. I turned my car, and as soon as my headlights came on, I could see someone standing in the woods behind a tree. It looked like a woman, but very old, and she was hunched and had some kind of walking stick. I can't remember what she was wearing, but her whole face was covered, and I couldn't stay too long because my friends were screaming at me to floor it, so I did. We drove back to town, and we stopped at a gas station to gather our thoughts. Everyone was puzzled, and everyone saw that old woman. My friends in the car behind us said the old woman got out of the woods and was chasing after the car. I absolutely have no idea what we saw. I haven't been back there at night. We told the other friends what we experienced, and a group really went there to see for themselves. All I can say is that they hesitated to tell us what went down. They just told us that they were too creeped out and booked it out of there very soon. I don't know if we saw some kind of spirit or a demented woman, or what it was, but it creeped the hell out of us. This isn't like the United States. There aren't random people dressed in clown suits or anything like that in the woods. Our folklore has many legends about spirits that haunt the woods at night, stories that my grandma was telling me when I was a child, but I never believed in them. I think I would never know what happened that night, and honestly, I really don't want to know. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that thumbs up as it helps me out a lot. If you're new to the swamp, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, as I upload videos almost every single day on all things creepy and anomalous. If you have a story that you'd like to share on the channel, be sure to send it in to the email or the website that you can find in the description down below. Also, I have new shirts for sale. Be sure to check out the merch store. I also have an exclusive new series that is based around the park rangers and missing 411 phenomena. So, if you're looking for a tale to fall asleep to tonight that's over an hour long, check out the I Know Why People Are Going Missing in the Woods series on my channel. See you guys soon with another creepy video.